my favorite APS-C lens? It's close, it's almost there, but let me explain what my top 5 are. Let's go. Okay, so can you guess my favorite lens? We're shooting on it right now. So this video, we're actually gonna be going through my top 5 favorite APS-C lenses for the A6000 range. This is only for prime lenses as well, so not for telephoto zoom lenses or anything like that, but these are my top 5, starting with number 5. So, number 5, we have the Cine Anamorphic lens. Now, this is the 75mm f1.8. This is probably my favorite lens of the Cine lenses. It does have a pretty good focus throw. It's a complete manual design. It's an f1.8 all the way up to f16, and it gives you all those nice anamorphic qualities. So, would I use this for a lot of my talking head pieces? You know what? Probably not, but would I use this for narrative filmmaking? Absolutely. It is really hard to replicate what you can get out of the anamorphic lenses with spherical lenses. And sure enough, you could probably put some streak filters on there and get those anamorphic flares. It's not the same, but getting that really nice oval bokeh, the creamy background, the really nice wide aspect ratio, it's so good. Yeah, it's manual lenses, it's not for photography, it's video only, so versatility, there's not as much there when it comes to having photography lenses. But this is a really good filmmaking tool, especially if you are into video. Strongly consider these lenses. I've got the 24, I've got the 35, I've got the 50, and the 75. So I've got all 4 of these APS-C anamorphic lenses. They are just, I can't describe how good they are. They look so good. But these are fabulous lenses, and I do recommend them if you want to have some sort of different look or a stylistic choice to some of your films. So the next one is quite unique, and it is probably one of my newest lenses for the APS-C cameras, but the reason why I'm choosing this is because of the super wide focal range. So there's always that one time that you need that one specific wide angle lens. This lens is for you, but if you are a real estate photographer or videographer, this would be a great option for your APS-C camera. It's a 9mm lens on the APS-C cameras, which ends up being about, you know, 13 or 14 sort of millimeters. It really depends. You can use it on your full frame camera with clear image zoom. You can punch in 1.3 times and still get that nice wide angle as opposed to 1.5 time APS-C crop. But yeah, look how wide this thing is. It's so good. You can actually use it for vlogging if you really wanted to. It is a manual lens, so you will have to use manual focus and dial it in that way. So if you do have a flip screen, it's a plus. If you don't have a flip screen, that sucks. But you'll be mostly behind the camera anyway. But for photography, man, it is so cool. Look at the size of this thing as well. It is so small, and it's a 9mm lens. It's a full manual design, so it's a T2.9, so that is the transmitted light that goes into the sensor, so it's not an f-stop. The amount of light that goes into the lens and hits the sensor is a T2.9. So that is really good for filmmakers or video workers if you actually want to know the exact amount of light that hits the sensor. And a 9mm on an APS-C ends up being about a 13 or 14mm sort of lens. That's pretty wide and can be very handy in some circumstances. Now the next one in this lineup is actually a nice third-party option, and they're relatively new in the sort of industry in terms of third-party lenses and autofocus lenses for that matter. And it's a pretty surprising one, and it does beat the Sigma lens of the Sigma Trio. I know, right? This is the Viltrox 33mm f1.4. So it is a fast autofocus lens. This is a lens by Viltrox. Like, it's a company that not a lot of people actually know about, and not a lot of people know they actually do some really good lenses. Like, this is a 33 f1.4. You can open it wide up. You can get some really nice low light performance on your APS-C cameras, and that autofocus is so good. This is on the A6000 right now, and it's looking so fast. I can't believe it. This is a great lens. Now, as most people know, autofocus doesn't just come down to the lens, though. It does come down to the actual camera. So if you do have the newest APS-C cameras like the Sony ZV-E10, you're gonna have really fast autofocus paired with this thing, and you're just gonna have optimal performance. If you have the A6000 like I'm filming on right now, it's not exactly the fastest. You may get some focus hunting, but if you have it on those newer cameras, you're not gonna have any issues. So good. Just gives me so much satisfaction how it clips on there. It's like a fidget spinner. I could do this for hours. But the great thing about this as well is it does have your aperture control on the lens as well, just like your G Master lenses, even though they're trying to make it look like a G Master lens by this, you know, red C thing. But it's very similar to G Master lenses. You can chuck it into A, and that puts you into the camera control aperture, or you can select the aperture on the actual lens itself. But it is a very wide open f1.4, which is really good for low light situations, specifically on the A6000 when it doesn't have, you know, great low light performance. You can get incredible depth of field with this thing. Because it is an f1.4 33mm lens, it's about a 50mm equivalent in full frame. So that is a really cool focal length, specifically for portraits and B-roll sort of videos as well. Definitely recommend this lens. Now, I really thought that this lens would be the top, and it has been my favorite lens for so long, specifically for the wide angle, and that is, you guessed it, the Sigma 16 f1.4. You just really can't beat this lens. Now, this is just a phenomenal lens. It is tack sharp, low chromatic aberration. At f1.4 wide open, you just get such nice, crisp and sharp images. Now, when it comes to manual focus, it's not bad. It is focused by wire, so it's not as accurate as a manual focus lens, but the focusing system is quite decent on here as well. But just that f1.4 aperture and it being tack sharp in f1.4 is just so good. Another good thing about this is if you are using full frame for your A cam, does have a 67mm filter thread on the front, which I know a lot of full frame cameras have 60mm filter threads, so your ND filters will fit in there nice and easy as well. So it is really hard to make this video, mainly for the fact that I don't know what you guys shoot. This is my own opinion, and the reason why I've placed a certain lens at the top is because it has its own specific reasons and its own specific uses. This lens right here, this is the Sigma 16 f1.4. This is really good for this sort of stuff, talking head stuff, get enough in frame. It's a 24mm full frame equivalent, but it is an f1.4, so it's really good for low light performance on the A6000 cameras. No, it doesn't have OSS, so it's a little bit shaky. You do have to have the A6500 or A6600 to have that internal IBIS. So that's why this thing doesn't come to the top, but it is such a really good performing lens. Now, my favorite lens for the APS-C cameras, we're looking at it right now. Well, we're looking through the lens right now. And I'm gonna explain this, and you might agree, you might not agree, but this is the 50mm f1.8. It is one of the cheapest lenses on this list. But what? Hold up. I'm gonna explain. 1 second. The 50mm f1.8 is an OSS. Now, I know a lot of the APS-C cameras that you guys probably own, minus the A6600 to A6500, is that we don't have IBIS. That is a big issue. If you are using all of these lenses that I just explained, it's gonna be shaky as hell. Specifically if you are vlogging, doing it handheld, it's gonna be shaky as hell. This lens has OSS inside the lens, which makes it so good for handheld shooting. Makes you can go lower shutter speeds, slower shutter speeds in photography. You can go handheld video work. It is just so good. It's so smooth. The 50mm focal length ends up being a 75mm focal length as well on a full frame equivalent, which is really good for portrait photography. It can be really good for B-roll video. The depth of field on this thing is just great, and it is an f1.8 aperture. It's not incredibly sharp at f1.8, but if you stop it down to f2, that's when you start getting even sharper. Chromatic aberration is quite low on this thing, distortion is low, the vignetting is quite low. It is just a great performing lens for the price. Now, if you do have an APS-C lens, I absolutely recommend this one, the 50mm f1.8 OSS. Don't get this confused with the 50mm f1.8 FE. The FE is for the full frame cameras, and it is not image stability inside the lens. It doesn't have OSS. You need to be aware of that. And if you are a full frame user, This can only be used in APS-C cameras, or you can put it into APS-C crop mode, or you can use clear image zoom, but just remember that it won't be an actual 50mm lens on your full frame camera. You'll actually zoom in depending on if it's clear image zoom, or if it's an APS-C crop, it's a 75mm lens. But just be aware of that if you are using this for your full frame cameras. So anyway guys, that is it from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give this video a thumbs up. That would be absolutely amazing. Comment below if you have any suggestions, or what is your favorite lens for the APS-C cameras in prime lenses. Let me know in the comments below. Really like to know. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one. All right, let's get it.